First for you this hour, then, Volodymyr Zelensky will meet Donald Trump in Washington after his summit with Vladimir Putin failed to produce a ceasefire or a peace agreement. The Ukrainian president confirming that next step after a phone call with Donald Trump and European leaders. Now, the content of that call, though, suggests that the short summit Saturday is more of a victory for Vladimir Putin than anyone else. Trump reportedly telling him that the Russian president does not want a ceasefire and prefers a comprehensive agreement. For more, we're going to cross now to our correspondent in Kyiv, Emmanuelle Chaze. Hi, Emmanuelle. So the summit didn't get the two sides any closer to peace, which did not come as a surprise to Zelensky or to Ukrainians more broadly. What are they saying about this meeting?
Well, indeed, this didn't come as a surprise, even if, of course, it is a disappointment from the Ukrainian side. Remember, yesterday, Volodymyr Zelensky was saying that Ukraine was counting on America, meaning that he was hoping that there would be more pressure put on Vladimir Putin to gear towards a ceasefire, maybe also with additional sanctions waved at Vladimir Putin in case he wanted to continue the war. And none of this happened. On the contrary, Donald Trump basically said that it was up to Volodymyr Zelensky to now accept or not what Russia wanted from Ukraine, and that hasn't changed in 3.5 years of full-scale invasion. It is a capitulation of Ukraine, the cession of territories, and that's not something that Kyiv is ready to do. So Volodymyr Zelensky reacted quite a long time after the end of that meeting between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. He said that, I quote, "Ukraine once again confirms that it is ready to work as productively as possible for the sake of peace." He also said that he spent over an hour on the phone with Donald Trump, as well as in total an hour and a half with European leaders, and that there would be more talks between Kyiv and its allies as to what the next step should be. Volodymyr Zelensky also highlighted that Ukraine was ready for a meeting with Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin in the near future, but in essence, nothing has changed for Ukraine. So there's disappointment here, but also people were not expecting their aggressor, the president of the aggressor country, to change his stance yesterday, because that's not what we are seeing happening on the ground anyway.
Now, as you mentioned, the ground, Emmanuelle, this is also probably going to be tough news to swallow for Ukrainian forces, as well as the situation on the ground it gets increasingly grueling. I mean, what's the latest then from the front lines? The war, of course, continues.
The war continues. Nothing has changed there. Overnight, we've got over 80 drones that were launched at Ukraine, the bulk of which have been stopped by air defense. But even just if we look at the air raids, there's absolutely nothing that has changed on the Russian side. And there's also been bombings yesterday on the central market in Sumy city, bombings on civilian infrastructure in Dnipro and Zaporizhia, to quote just the latest of such attacks. And on the front line, the Russian offensive continues, especially on the eastern front line. We have these intense pockets of fighting in Kostiantynivka, in Pokrovsk, with this apparent breach of the first defense line of the Ukrainian troops by some Russians. Ukraine said that it is handling the situation at the moment, and when we look at open source, we see that indeed it seems that this breach is not so significant as to pose a major threat to the Ukrainian army as of right now, but it is an evolving situation. Noteworthy today is that Volodymyr Zelensky also said that Pokrovsk was now free of Russian presence in its city center. He said that Russian saboteurs, so that's isolated elements of the Russian army, have managed to make their way in the city a few days ago, but that they have now all been eliminated. Those are his words. So there's also some relative successes recorded by the Ukrainian army on the front line.
Emmanuelle Chaze, our correspondent in Kyiv, thank you very much for that.